Leadership is key to everything. It's not taught. You know, you could go to culinary school, you could have a 4.0, and you could make the most just lights out food in the world and not be a leader.
Absolutely.
But if you're going to run a kitchen, I'll take a leader over the best cook in the world. As a chef, one of the things that was most important to me was always trying to be the best or constantly like push yourself. But after Cornell, the Culinary Institute, working at some of the best restaurants in Manhattan, I worked at Le Bernardin, I worked at La Cité, the original Valencia Grill, really cool places, Disney, and then eventually starting my own company and doing a lot of consulting for stadiums and arenas. Add being now, let's go a couple of years after, I'm a corporate chef. I'm responsible for several hotels. I'm traveling. You don't see your kids. And I'm like, you know, if I ever get the chance, I wanted to start something that's going to kind of help me dial it back. So after child 3, we started thinking about what would that look like. Each time I was like, when I do it again, I'm going to make it smaller. And smaller kept getting closer to my grandmother. Smaller kept getting closer to soul. Smaller kept getting closer to, you know, Keith, what has failed you in this business? Well, you know, I don't dislike servers, but the only thing that's ever failed me is, you know, what happens after my food leaves the kitchen. You know, so can I have a restaurant that doesn't have servers? And you know, we thought about it. You know, the other part was, you know, what else happens? You talk about turnover in the industry. I'm like, how do I make it so that I have quality of life? I want a weekend. And then the question becomes like, how do you make a weekend happen? Well, we're closed on Sundays and Mondays. I remember chefs and industry professionals, you're crazy, or I hear customers, oh, you're losing out on a whole lot of money, or that's not going to work. And I'm like, we got to figure out how to make that happen. All right, that's my burden. All right, you just come here the other 5 days a week that I'm open.
How can you define in your own terms, what's the difference between being a boss and being a leader?
The leaders lead by example. Now, we've all heard that. We've all hopefully have seen it, or we've all seen systems where they don't see it. Usually people leave, all right? Because people don't leave their jobs, they leave their bosses, you know? And well, if you're a boss, you're probably not leading, and if you're not leading, they're leaving. You know, and trust me, I've seen it happen on my own, in my own systems, where I get so caught up in doing other things that I'm not really being a leader. And a leader is a leader, but a leader is also a listener. You know, a leader is also, you know, in it. You know, and sometimes, you know, when you own your own business, you're caught up in fixing and doing several other things that make you forget, listen, I hired this guy because he's really good at that. Am I helping nurture that? You know, or am I just only concerned about getting done what I want done? Am I feeding? Am I leading? And that's a really important piece that I'd say that has to happen. That's the big difference, you know, and bosses come from boss environments. You know, if you're going to lead, you first have to kind of take yourself off of the pedestal and say, I'm going to teach and I'm going to listen. You know, the very nature of pedagogy, you know, to be a listener, to be a teacher, you know, is 100% connected to being a chef. You know, that chef has to be in front of every experience that's going on, not so much doing them all, but has to be in front of these experiences in a way so that the people who are doing their job are actually watching you and learning how to lead. For me, it's a part of me because I grew up in a family unit that had clear leaders. I worked in places that had clear leaders, and I learned how to pick and choose those places because I came from an environment with leaders. I was in the 82nd Airborne as a United States Army Airborne Ranger. And I came from an environment where there was a clear leader. My home, see the pattern? Leaders. Kitchen's the place where I go to work. Leaders. The military. Leaders. So in that mentor-disciple relationship, there's a clear leader. There's a clear person that I want to be like that guy. All right. And you may not get to talk to him much, but you saw exactly what he was. All right. The few times that you did hear him speak, it was so clear that all you could simply say is, "Oui, chef," or "Yes, chef." And that's it. And there was a reason for it, and it was calculated, and he had thought it through, and there is no second guessing. He did not stutter. This is what you do. I have that expectation of my staff, but I also have to be a thoughtful leader and know that each thing that I say, they are actually hanging on each word, even if they don't agree. And I need to know that I have that kind of follow through. You know, in the movie A Few Good Men, they're like, you know, and people follow orders, right? If they don't follow orders, people die.
Right.
That's right. If people don't follow orders, the kitchen dies. That also doesn't mean that I run some sort of autocracy where I don't listen. And that's the difference between, you know, the chef temper tantrums and Nazi chefs I work for that threw knives and called you all kinds of names. And I learned that, you know, you don't have to be that to be an effective leader. Coming from a environment or culture of leadership makes you be able to, at least you should, be able to choose, if I want to learn and go somewhere, where do I want to work?
Right.
What kind of guy do I want to work for? And if you come from an environment of leadership, you're going to have some idea of what that looks like. And that's what you should be looking for when you go to get a new job. When you go to get a new job, I'm not going to that kitchen because, like, oh, this chef is famous. Finding out what you want to do means a lot of research about who are the people that do this. So when I talked about badging before, badging is about those steps. You know, and I've received the badge because I've learned how to make great soup. And I've received the badge because I've learned how to manage 4 people working within my soup station. I've got another badge that took me a little higher because I became the banquet chef because I've done all the stations in the kitchen. And the chef was like, well, you know, you're so organized, you know, I'd like to give you an opportunity to be a banquet soup. I think that you could pull together events and do these. So that lineage, but a lot of it has to do with knowing where you want to go. And most cooks don't know where they want to go. So my thing is that you really have to dig deeper. And a lot of that has to do with the whole mentor-disciple thing, because you're connecting yourself to people who are going to help you connect to the things that you want to connect to.
How do you connect with them that helps you better yourself?
There was a time when I thought I had all the answers. And that's probably when I was the most miserable. Do you notice that my restaurant is up and running, doing what they have to do, and everybody's doing their jobs, and I'm not in them? I've learned to trust. I've learned to trust the process. I've learned to trust my leadership to get people to the place where they need to be. So I don't have to solve all the problems. I have to go back to, if you don't ask for help, I want you to be my mentor. I want to go to the next step. I don't know how. I love what I'm doing, and I love being a part of what you have me doing here, chef or leader. But I don't know the next step. I don't know is frustrating enough. Imagine if you have a bunch of I don't knows. Think about that middle manager who's been in the job 4 to 8 years. They're like, I don't know what's going to happen next. So the I don't know itself is frustrating, but you came up in this culture where you don't ask. You just suck it up. And it only gets worse. It's like holding these burning coals and can't do anything with them. All right? Where you need a leader who will help you hold them. So my advice is be connected to the people that are your leaders. First, identify your leaders wherever you work. You know, if you're that middle manager, well then the GM or the DM or the RM, you know, are they listening to you? Hey boss, what's the next step? Hey leader, well, you know what, I've been doing this for 8 years and I love my job, but I love to learn, I love to achieve. What's the next step? Or, you know what, I don't know what the next step is, but can you take some time to teach me so I can be ready? I want your job, or I want the next job, whatever that is. But if you don't ask because you come from, you don't ask because you come from this culture that says don't ask. So my number one piece of advice is to ask. The only dumb question is the question that you don't ask.
Yeah. they're leaving their jobs because they're not finding that same kind of cultivation. Either you're saying like they're maybe that boss is going, they have that periscope up of like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm not finding meaning, I know I'm trusted, I know I can do all these responsibilities, but now I'm being job loaded and now I'm doing more and there's no support of like, hey, I've asked you 4 times,
I see
like,
no end.
can I get somebody to help me? I really can't do all of this by myself. And they're like, no, we can't afford that. You're doing a great job. Our food cost is great. I don't need that right now. And they're saying, I don't know how long I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
How can we help people get to this new map?
Right.
To go, you could take this road. You could take this one. Let me connect you to that person.
You got to speak up. So these people that are in these middle management positions, people that are in the position where they think like they're stuck or they're in a dead end, they have to ask. They've got to talk. Closed mouth don't get fed. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. All right. So if you don't say something, you're not going to get nothing. As my grandmother would say, if you want something you never had, you got to do something you never did. So if you're not a speaker, if you're not a talker, if you're not going to say, hey chef, I want to do this. If you don't say that, the chef probably doesn't know. I put myself in a position where I work in a smaller environment where I can get to know my people. When I'm on the Meadowlands and we got 300 cooks and porters and 30 managing chefs, I know your last name. That's about it. I don't know what you drive. I don't know how many kids you have. I don't know what you like. I don't know what you don't like. And my exec sous, they're the only people I really talk to, and they're beat up with responsibility. But I took the time to talk to those 3 guys so that I could, because I was more connected to them. And they got to the point that they could ask me questions. Chef, what do I got to do? Well, there's an opportunity in Philly, and, I talked to corporate, they got something going on in Vegas, I could put you in for that job, but you got to talk. But I put them in a position where they learn that they can talk to their leader. And that I'm not afraid to say what I was thinking, which I learned to let go of. No, I don't want him to go anywhere, man. I got this working perfect. I can go home at 5 o'clock. I don't want you to go anywhere. That's a bad leader. Because a real leader wants to see you become a leader. If I lose you, it means that I've just helped you learn how to fly. And it's my job to continue teaching other chefs how to fly. Not to stay here in the nest, but to go, to grow.